All right, Elizabeth, it's great to have you. A quick intro that I want to give people because it's very, very important. A scientist, nutritionist, and herbalist with a master's in reproductive medicine and over 20 years' experience as a clinician and teacher. You've helped thousands of patients start their families, manage chronic illness, lose weight, gain hormonal balance, and overcome a range of unresolved health issues. Prior to joining fertility programs, most of your patients have been facing particularly challenging fertility issues that have resulted in multiple miscarriages and repeat IVF failures. You've also worked with patients who have had unresolved health care issues in women's and men's hormone and reproductive health, autoimmune and chronic disease, children's behavioral disorders, and obesity. Wow. That's like the whole gym.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm reading all that and go, wow, man, I need help. But a topic that we wanted to discuss, which is happening a lot, and I see it a lot, especially in a lot of young women now, is polycystic ovarian syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
How has that epidemic grown so much in recent times?
A lot of it has to do with, well, it's quite multifaceted because it will depend on whether that person is eating well for their body type or not. And if they're not, because polycystic ovarian syndrome is very reliant on your sugar levels. And because we're in an environment where we can just open a cupboard and just access a lot of carbs and refined sugars, we, from a very young age, we will sort of develop that tendency. So we have, epigenetics is where you can turn genes on and off. And so you could have that predisposition for polycystic ovaries or ovarian syndrome, and you've encouraged it to be switched on because you've eaten a certain way and you may not have even known, like your parents could have fed you a certain way. And then it's a real cascade because sugar's so addictive. So from a really young age, if you haven't been introduced to a whole bunch of food and a whole bunch of high protein and good fat sort of foods, you're going to be addicted to sugar because the actual condition makes you crave sugar. So now you're in this web of trying to just listen to your body. Often you'll hear people say that, just listen to your body, body knows. And that's actually, to someone who can become quite addicted to sugar, that's like the worst thing because they don't understand that their body is, their imbalances are pushing them down this path. And I've spoken to people who are actual professionals, health professionals, and they have just, used that whole, you've just got to listen, your body knows, and just go with what your body wants. But actually it's getting out of control and it's encouraging disease. And then the next thing you know, you'll end up with diabetes. Just like we're seeing a lot of diabetes just like we're seeing a lot of diabetes in our society. That's why we're seeing a lot of polycystic ovarian syndrome. They're the same sort of genetic predisposition, as well as, a lot of people have moved out of countries where they would have been fine in their own country or in their own conditions, and they've come to an area where you can just access supermarkets and open fridges and cupboards and just get all the sugar that you want, instead of maybe I would have had to trek for water and for food and climb mountains and climb trees and used my muscle to actually keep that sugar balance there. Now they don't do it anymore, and they're quite sedentary. So the more sedentary our life gets, the more those people carrying that polycystic ovarian genetic predisposition they've got a higher risk of now doing that, because as you become more sedentary, your sugar levels are going to start to rise, which is going to make insulin rise, which is going to make cortisol go crazy. And so you're just ending up going around. That's why it's happening.
Yeah. And there's a lot of symptoms that come with it, like there's excessive facial hair, body hair, acne, hair loss, weight gain, infertility, irregular periods. When individuals come to you, I mean, I was just reading. There's a lot of people that don't know they have it.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
if they were to go to a GP, I mean, how would they treat something like this? Because not everyone's going to have access to someone like you. And this is what I want to be able to do by doing, creating the awareness is to help more people. What does the individual do that goes, oh, I've got these problems? They might have acne issues, hair loss issues, weight gain, and they're going to a GP. What does the GP do for these individuals? Like, what happens in that process?
Yeah, it's tricky because a GP is not a specialist. And so a lot of GPs won't know what to do at all. Some that have sort of taken an interest in this area may know more. Otherwise, they will send them to a specialist if they don't know. But actually, I've got polycystic ovaries. I've never had facial hair. I've never had acne. I've not been that typical polycystic girl. And I didn't know. So I had 4 children very easily. I was never infertile. But I was always muscular. I gained muscle very easily. I was very, very strong from a very young age. I didn't understand why I was so different. I was naturally athletic. And so I used to just question what I don't know anybody like me. Like I was really quite interesting until later when I went and got a scan just to sort of check was everything okay, just for fun. And the doctor said, oh, you're polycystic, you got polycystic ovaries. And I went, what do you mean? I've been really fertile. Yeah. And she said, yeah, no, you're definitely polycystic. So there's different types of polycystic girls. There's the ones that are estrogen dominant, and there's those that are estrogen poor, those that have very high testosterone, and those that just have healthy levels of testosterone. And then on top of that, it depends on other genetic makeup, depends on how your body will cope with those hormones. So some people will get a very sort of hourglass body because they're estrogen dominant, and others will have a very male sort of androgen type of body type and have facial hair, etc. But really, in the end, I get rid of facial hair and I get rid of pimples and I get rid of all of that in those women as soon as we start to figure out for that particular person what needs to be done. Because what happens with GPs or doctors, they're very limited with the tools that they have, so they're likely to put you on the pill. Brenda, Diane, maybe Yaz. And so they shut down the whole ovarian system. Wow. So when the whole ovarian system's shut down, then they basically give you hormones at a level. That's what the pill is, hormone therapy, really. They give you hormones, and so you're on hormones until you're basically either menopaused or that you're ready to try and have a child. And so instead of actually dealing with the reason that's happening, it's shut down. So when these girls, these women go and try and fall pregnant, a lot of them struggle. So they're like, what do you mean? I've just been on the pill for 15 years. Yeah. And what did I do that for? And now I can't fall pregnant. Instead of understanding that, no, they actually put you on the pill so that your body didn't try and ovulate. It didn't try and do anything so they could control it better. That's why a lot of people's skin gets better when they go on the pill. And then they're left with, I can't fall pregnant now because the problem that was happening back there is still happening, but maybe a lot worse because you're older. So then they can't fall pregnant either. But actually you can be polycystic and fall pregnant if you're balanced. In fact, the women I have the highest success rates are my polycystic girls because they tend to have a lot of eggs. So they have this longevity. It goes on, they're falling pregnant well and truly in their 40s quite easily once we figure out what was going wrong.
So how do you figure out what kind of polycystic issue that they have?
So some people get scanned and a uterine scan and they won't have cysts on their ovaries. But that doesn't mean that they don't have the syndrome. So that's where a lot of doctors will make that mistake. So we know, and that was in the masters, like it's not that they don't know. A specialist will know that just because you don't have cysts on your ovaries doesn't mean that you don't have polycystic ovaries. There are other things in their bloods that they can go and have a look at, like sex hormone binding globulin, which tends to sit on the high end in polycystic girls. Testosterone tends to sit on the higher end of normal, but it doesn't have to, because if they are eating well, if they are exercising, if they're looking after themselves and they're not massive sugar eaters, they may not display polycystic ovarian syndrome. But the minute that they go off in relaxing, maybe, well, let's use that, around carbs, but particular carbs, and they might do that for a little while, they'll see their weight will come up, they'll start to put, fat on their muscle. They'll put on weight quite quickly if they're not careful and eat the right carbs, and the right times and things like that.
So we've got a lot of fit girls that train here.
Mm-hmm.
So you could be, in quite good shape, but then having a whole lot of sugar, which can then trigger
Exactly,
polycystic.
of course.
So, okay. I think, I kind of see a lot of that. I kind of see a lot of that because your genetic disposition could be fast metabolism. So, I can eat all these foods. Like you see, if it fits your macros a lot, eat what you want. As long as you're within the calories or the macros, you're going to be fine. But if sugar's the catalyst for that, none of those individuals are going to be fine.
Correct.
Right?
That's why. That's right.
There's a big sort of like spike in polycystic ovarian syndrome that's affecting young females. But more importantly, when they get it, correct me if I'm wrong, they start to have anxiety, they start to feel down about themselves, and they don't even know what it is.
Correct.
Do you see a lot of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of people will label polycystic ovarian girls as stress girls, stress heads, because sugar is triggering cortisol, and cortisol is going to start to trigger anxiety. And cortisol, once sugar triggers cortisol triggers insulin. Insulin makes you put on weight around your waistline. So a lot of my polycystic girls now, quite a few of them have started doing Ozempic and stuff that, which is not a solution, because you're actually going to cause more problems later, because that's going to chew into your muscle. And then later, as you stop it, unless you want to be on it for the rest of your life, which isn't a great idea, later you end up fatter than what you were because you got less muscle and more fat. So instead of looking at, so what we know about polycystic girls is that they have to actually eat protein for lipolysis to break down fat. If they just cut out carbs, that isn't enough. They have to actually eat protein, and that actually triggers the biochemical pathways for them to actually break down their fat or trigger fat burning. And then, it depends on what they do around their cycle as well. So if you think back, go way, way back before we had fridges and all that sort of stuff, what food wasn't so easily accessible. It was those people with the ability to trigger higher insulin that had a better chance of survival. So if your genetic makeup was that when you went and ate, you triggered insulin more readily, like you more quickly, you were going to get more hungry. So before you left that area, you would go back and eat more and then eat more. So you're then going to put that on as fat, which would give you a better chance of survival as you trekked for the next place that you were traveling to before you hit food. So people that actually had that predisposition had a better chance of survival. Put those people now where we've got supermarkets and really high refined foods and all the rest, you're going to now trigger diabetes. So that's the problem, because now it's going to be making you sick. So when you have the knowledge and you really understand your body type, and what I normally do is do detailed blood tests, take people, because everybody's different, and depending on other things that are going in their genetics will help just iron that out. So as soon as you correct it, anxiety disappears, depression disappears, because it depends on how long they've had it another thing that polycystic girls suffer from usually are things like candida overgrowth, because the sugar's been running in their system so high that it's very easy for them to get thrush or candida problems, or other candida issues, which could be sinuses and rashes, etc. And then the candida living in their bloodstream is wanting sugar to survive because it's fungus. So you're in another web. So we sort of clear everything up, because when candida, for example, is overgrowing in your gut, because it's sort of wrecking your gut, not only will you be bloated all the time, not only will you have IBS type symptoms. Lots of people are labelled IBS and it's really not. It's other things going on. Not only will you have that, but you're more likely to have depression as well, because a lot of our serotonin, in fact, more than 85% of it is made in the stomach. So if you don't take care of your stomach, you're now going to have higher chances of depression. So that's where it's just one thing. So the longer you leave things, the sicker and sicker you'll get, and eventually you'll end up always inflamed and then a really high chance of cancer.
Wow. As I'm listening to you, I'm thinking how many females that I talk to in here that are in quite good shape, but you can see like symptoms of like depression, and I'm kind of asking myself the question if these people suffer from polycystic ovarian issues. And from everything you're telling me, it's like a cascade of leading into issues that are going to be worse. Now, when a patient comes to you, how long does it take from the start of your protocols to, you know, is it 2, is it 3 months to bring them back? So is there a process like at the start where they're like they struggle to
it will
get over the
depend.
line?
It'll depend on how good they were at eating already before I meet them, how knowledgeable what they were. But it takes 3 months to make hormones. You can't cheat the system, because hormones are made at the nucleus level. So it's like you have to wait for those cells to die and for new cells. But they normally see results in about 2 weeks. They will tend to see I get them to do measurements so that, like especially under the bust, waistline, belly button, because they will see very quickly that where their body shape either was straight up and down or just out a little bit, they start going in. Their waist comes in, because the visceral fat starts just melting away. Because as soon as we correct that issue, those issues that they've got, the body gets switched on.
Yep. And, you know, we just talked about, which is a hot topic, Ozempic, that a lot of females, I don't know if many males are taking it, but so this leads me to the question, and these people probably wouldn't have even tested themselves or got a comprehensive blood test to see if they had any prior issues to get on a drug like that, to lose the weight they possibly got from polycystic ovarian syndrome.
And that's only just one. Like they could even, say for instance, not even have polycystic ovaries, but just have a very toxic environment, or have be drinking too much alcohol. And over time, that's really wrecking their sugars. So just anything that's sort of, you know, pushing them down the sugar pathway where the sugars are really getting out of control, they're going to start seeing stuff. It's just the polycystic girls are in warp speed. They just sort of really go down that path very, very quickly. And so what some of my patients have done, they've come to me, they've already been on Ozempic. A lot of them.
Really?
Oh, yeah. They've been on Ozempic. And then
what do they come with? Like when they come in with you, like what symptoms are they coming
They're
with? Why are
very
they
weak.
coming?
They're very, very weak. Now they're very overweight. So what they've done is they listened to whoever told them that was the way to go.
How are doctors allowing people to take that drug?
I think I don't. I've asked myself the same question because it's, you know, it depends on, I suppose, how deep they've gone in to look at the studies. You really have to look at the studies. It is causing paralysis inside the gut. Like it's doing a lot of damage. A lot of damage. And I suppose what they're probably looking at is if I don't know what they've been told, but it's more that if, is this person about to have a heart attack or kill themselves because they're so upset and down and depressed because of their weight? Is that what's happening there? And so therefore, if I use this and I can show them that they're turning a corner, maybe that's the way to go, because they're not going to get into a gym because they're too depressed to even get out of bed. So that's their approach. But actually, I will have people turn around mentally, usually within a month. They're quite different
From Ozempic?
people. No, just as in general.
General, yeah.
So it's just that's I suppose that's the approach as they're coming to, say, a GP. The GP's got the tools that person the GP has. So some people will be treating people probably a little bit more quickly. I do have people that are diabetic that are on trials with Ozempic. The person that comes to mind is, really fit and healthy and, but they're doing a trial. So with Ozempic, what I've seen is the people have been on it so far. 5 months seems to be the magic number. They do 5 months, they lose weight initially and then it stops. And then they're stuck in a plateau, and then they are taking this drug and nothing's happening anymore. But they feel really, really, really weak, sick, really sick, really, really weak. They're the people I've seen. And then they've gone off it before I've met them. And one of my patients was saying she couldn't even lift up her child.
Wow.
She was saying, I've got a 3-year-old, I can't lift her. Polycystic girl.
Yeah.
So then
So she's polycystic Ozempic as well.
So what she did was a gut operation, like a band. Lost some weight doing that. Then the weight started coming back on. And then she did Ozempic for 5 months, got very, very ill, and then came to me more for, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I can't even get out of bed. And then within 2 weeks, she was like a different person. Yep. And she was back in the gym. She couldn't believe that she was actually even able to walk around for a long period of time. 2 weeks after that, she was starting to lift heavier and heavier weights. She lost, I think, about 5 kilos in the month. Wow. She was really strict. She did exactly what she knew. All of a sudden, I was like, well, you're polycystic, so that means you just need to do these other things. Yeah. And you'll see you'll feel better and better. I think she was losing over 1 kilo a week, yeah. And then, she's doing amazingly now. But... it was just like I asked her, why did you go on that? She said, well, they said that that's what I need to because I'm polycystic. I'll end up a diabetic if I don't do something, and then I'll go down this path of it'll get bigger and bigger. And she'd already done a lap band surgery. Like she'd already done everything that she thought she could do to try and keep her weight down. She was young.
What is that like? So what does that protocol look like? You don't have to go really into it, because I'm sure after this a lot of people, and I'm going to advocate everything that you're doing because I think it's extremely important. What are some of the things that an individual like that needs to do? 2 parts, like say from a dietary perspective, obviously you probably got to be eating more protein, but from a supplementary perspective, how many supplements would they need to get on? Because obviously, you're a naturopath as well. So
that, again, that's going to depend on where they're coming, at what point they're coming to me.
Do they get like blood tests too at that point?
Yeah,
because you're going to
that's exactly right.
You're going to need that.
So
right?
I'll be really, really deep with what I need to sort of understand what's happening in their body. Like, how far has their body gone now? How damaged it is? We just lay everything out on the table. And then, and Elle, my daughter, does this as well. So we work together doing this. Yeah, we do that together.
I've sent a lot of people tell that Elle's helped out.
Yeah.
Actually, one gentleman that I sent had IBS. And he was coming to me and I go, mate, just go see Elle. And Elle really helped out. I just sent another gentleman, and we'll get into a bit of male fertility, because I sent another gentleman, I said, look, To get what you need, you're going to have to do a comprehensive blood test,
Mm.
you know, and I think it's very important that people do that. I done one myself, and I've probably got to do another one. But, you know, when you do a comprehensive blood test, like you go to a GP, they give you like 9 blood biomarkers. How many blood biomarkers that need to be measured for you to get the result necessary?
Again, like so,
Does that depend on an
it will
individual?
depend the
Yeah.
age. It will depend on what have
What
they
they've-
been on. Have they
okay.
been on the pill? Have they not been on the
Okay.
pill? You know, it will depend on, are they now a diabetic? Are they not a diabetic? So have they done anything just recently? So it will depend. It will depend on, usually I'm looking at obviously hormones and at different times of a cycle.
Yeah.
I'll look at definitely sugar markers and liver markers, iron, thyroid, because everything is starting to crash. When you're feeding your system lots of sugar, depending on the person's body, it will either crash super quickly, or it will try and use other means of doing what it needs to do, and then eventually just you'll see it it's getting worse and worse and worse. It depends on the environment they're in. Do they drink? Do they not drink? You know, that alcohol's a big one. Do they smoke? Are they taking drugs? Because inside the liver, you have an enzyme called a P450 enzyme, and it's limited. And so what it does is it will detox the liver, but it will always deal with the nastiest stuff first, so alcohol first. So it will deal with alcohol, then it will deal with drugs and cigarettes, and it will just keep going down the path, caffeine. So if they're big coffee drinkers, a polycystic girl who really should not be drinking that much coffee at all, again, because it raises cortisol.
Yeah.
Anything that's going to raise
affects
cortisol.
their adrenals too, right?
Yep. And so a lot of polycystic girls have adrenal issues and maybe thyroid issues as well eventually. And so that P450 enzyme sitting there busy. And then what it tends to not deal with very well in those states, or it doesn't really care very much, is cholesterol and good hormones. Balancing your hormones. That's why eventually a lot of polycystic girls will start seeing that their sugars start to go wonky, insulin resistance, then they end up with high blood pressure, then or cholesterol, whichever one comes first for that particular person, then diabetes, inflammation, cancer. You know, they go down that path. So it's a really easy sort of thing that once you lay it out, you go, okay, so this is you, and there's a lot of positives to being polycystic. You're polycystic because you've led it down a wrong pathway. But if you clean up that situation, your body's stronger than most people. You know, you tend to look great for your age for a longer period of time because of the testosterone levels. You know, you don't tend to get a lot of joint issues and things like that if you're taking care of yourself and you're doing what you need to. If you don't, what will tend to happen by the time you're about 40 is you're likely to have endometriosis, maybe even earlier than that, because you haven't been ovulating properly. So estrogens are getting really, really high in your system, and then you're encouraging endometriosis, and then you see lots of miscarriages, infertility, goes on and on and on.
Yep.
So and those diseases are causing issues. So that's where, and you can see a lot of them take Lexapro and Zoloft, and they're all being given like SSRIs, a lot of them, because or anti-anxiety sort of meds.
Wow. And that just suppresses everything, right? It doesn't remove the symptom of what's going on. It just suppresses for, you know, a period of time, and then it's going to blow up again.
Exactly. And then what else is happening with the mental stuff is that they're getting more and more fears, maybe OCD tendencies or whatever. And so now their mind is actually being, PTSD, in some ways being trained to think in a negative direction or in an anxious direction. The earlier you can get it, the less likely you are to sort of have all these memories of, but I remember the last time I went there, I had a panic attack and therefore I don't want to go into shops anymore. And I don't, you know, all of that sort of stuff. So that each time, it's not just going to make itself better magically. There's a reason it's there. So if you can sort of really get down to, that's why I love the pathways, because my background, I went into science first, so biochemistry, physiology, because I had worked with handicapped children from the age of 15. And I was determined that if any way I could reduce the chances of kids being born like that, I wanted to. So I started with science and then I specialised in fertility and reducing the chances of that. So I don't get babies being born like that because we do all our stuff beforehand and make sure that people are in their best health before they go off and have a baby, and then during the development making sure they're in really good shape.
That's so important though.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't realise that you actually, like I've had people come to me with 12 miscarriages, 15, 20 miscarriages, and then going on to have 2-3 babies without a miscarriage in between. Because a lot of their issues were cleaned up. You know, a lot of their stuff was cleaned up.
So finding the right help's not easy, because we were talking about this yesterday, where people said, "Oh, do you have a person in Melbourne?"
Yeah, it's not
You know
easy.
what I mean? And you said, "No, I don't." Right? And I believe that, because like that's why I send people to Elle, because I don't know anyone either, and it's easy to talk to. I'll go, "Oh, I don't know what's wrong with this person, but this is what they've got, this is what they want to come to you with," and all that kind of stuff. I'm just going to talk about this one more time, but with Ozempic, it obviously got a lot of traction through a lot of the Hollywood stars losing weight, and then a lot of people wanted to jump on the bandwagon. Do you think like the media, social media, when you see these girls that are extremely fit, people in Hollywood, they're eating a certain way, they're going out, they're drinking alcohol. You said to me alcohol. You just mentioned it, like you kept saying sugar, how bad. You've almost like I'm not going anywhere near sugar, because you've said sugar, sugar.
Yeah.
And then you said alcohol. And we're talking about how alcohol's poisonous. And I think yesterday we're talking about like if you got menopause, it's just, it's almost like triggering it even more.
Oh, yeah, of course.
All
the cortisol.
The individuals that got menopause are now getting these hot flushes. They're feeling like down on themselves. You've been able to handle it well, and we're going to do more episodes.
Of course,
I think we're going to go down different areas, but I was talking to you before, and another hot topic that's been happening a lot, and I don't know if you've treated a lot of people, but the spike proteins. Like AstraZeneca's got a bad rap on it. They've taken it off shelves. The spike proteins, there's been a lot of people that have been sick, and you're seeing right now there's so many people that are getting flu-like symptoms worse than ever. If people have got these spike proteins in them from these mRNA shots, is there a way for those individuals to remove those spike proteins, or is it there forever? Like, have you dealt with anyone with those issues?
A lot, because the spike protein, I saw when people, and this will be with COVID as well, anything that's causing spike protein issues, you want it out of your system as fast as you can get it out of your system. So if you get COVID, you want to get better as fast as you can. Anything that's letting a spike protein hang around in your bloodstream is not really the way you want to be doing that, because spike protein attaches.
But you can get it from just getting COVID itself too,
That's
right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so on both ends of the scale.
Oh, absolutely. Any spike protein. So the spike protein, what we know is it attaches to the ACE2 receptors. The ACE2 receptors are inflammatory receptors, and there are parts of the body that are much higher in ACE2 receptors than the others. And so what I saw as we were going through was all of a sudden all these people miscarrying. Now, I don't get high miscarriage rates. I get very low miscarriage rates. And because we had deadlines, I was seeing all of a sudden a few of the teachers that had just fallen pregnant, and at times where I was thinking, that's not normal. It's past 8 weeks. It's not, So I was quite alarmed by seeing that. I was seeing people that had already menopaused bleed, so having to send them off to go and get checked, and why would that happen? I was seeing girls that were getting a period 2 weeks after their last period, never done that ever before.
Wow.
So really strange bleeding. I was having people bleed for weeks and weeks, never done that before. So I was seeing very strange sort of symptoms. And so that was one thing. And then because I check people's sperm analysis and things like that, all of a sudden this person that's got great sperm, ready to start trying and all that sort of stuff, getting pretty poor sperm within maybe 2 to 3 weeks after getting spike protein in their system, and nothing else had changed in their no stresses, no changes in diet, no changes in environment, and so then it wasn't just one time. Then I was starting to put together cases in my head, like because I had to sort of see what was going on with these people, and I was seeing it over and over. And other things that were happening were people going into menopause, like if they were on the border.
Wow.
So it was like, they might have been 41, 42, doing fine, and everything's looking great. And then overnight, people have said to me, I was like one of my patients who had a baby a year and a half earlier, a teacher, same sort of thing. She had told me she went and got, I think, Novavax, and all of a sudden that was it. Didn't get a period again after that. I've brought it on again. We sat down and we had to work. It took me about a year. So I have been able to get fertility back, all of that sort of stuff came back. So to do that, I've had to work with ridding the body of spike protein. So that's what I've done. And people have done really, really well. I have had people have strange, very, very strange things happen to them. And they said, would ring me, and they've been patients for 20 years, and said, I don't know what's wrong. Specialists don't know what's wrong with me. My eye feels like it's all swollen. My face is all swollen. And I've gone through, okay, well, there's nothing really that's that obvious. So we're sort of going, of course, autoimmune diseases can pop out of, nowhere. So I had targeted spike protein in a lot of these individuals, and they'd spent maybe 8, 9, 10 months getting tests after tests, trying to figure out what's wrong with them. Nothing really that obvious, just some sort of an immunity thing is humming in the background. I've just gone and targeted spike protein, and then within a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, all the symptoms have disappeared. They're feeling amazing. So I know I'm getting rid of it, but I don't know if the next time they get COVID, it's all triggered again, because obviously in a vaccine scenario, when we get vaxxed, we're getting vaxxed just in general, so that when you come across that disease, you're flaring up the immune system, and so that you can fight that disease really readily. So it's like, imagine soldiers, like you're pulling all your soldiers out and ready to fight. Yeah. So that was the idea here as well. And so every time that they go and come across getting COVID again, or coming, close to people who have it maybe, it's triggering the production all over again. Wow.
So you can remove it, but you don't know how long you can prolong that process.
It's the immune memory is very long.
Wow.
So it means it's something that you have to understand, be onto it. The more you understand about ACE2 receptors and spike protein and how to sort of clear it out of your system, every time you have that sort of being triggered, you want to sort of be after it. And eventually it should just wane eventually. But I don't think it's gone long enough for us to be able to do studies like that, because it's only just happened.
So you had to work quite hard during that process to try and figure it out for these patients that you've had for so many years, that you got into a good place, and all of a sudden now they're not in a good place. And then you had to kind of figure out. So was that because, like, obviously your science, background and degree, came in extremely handy in that point.
And I can read papers very well. Yeah. So as soon as you look up science papers, like they're not like really difficult for me to understand and read, where someone else might, without knowing that language, the science language, they might sort of struggle. There's a lot of papers, a lot of scientific papers out there with amazing studies and information. And so as time was going on, I was I could sit there and go, okay, I know what I've got to sort of do. I understand, and I've got amazing tools to be able to do stuff. And so, I was pulling together things that I knew I needed to in the body, and I was getting great results. Now it's even more so because I've been able to sort of lean on the shoulders of other scientists and doctors that have done amazing work and been able to refine even further. So it's been brilliant.
Wow. There's such great information because, one thing that I want to be able to do is educate our members, and I'm glad you came past recently and we talked, a month ago about getting you on here, and I think it's very important to educate as many people because I think we can help a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Through exactly what you do. Now, I've got a lot of male clients that come here, and male fertility has been on the decline a lot as well. And I just wanted to touch on that today. And what I'm noticing is a lot of men aren't feeling as energetic as they used to feel. Or, their energy is declining. They're not feeling as strong as they once felt. They're not feeling as confident as they once felt. Why are we seeing a huge decline in male fertility as well as what we're seeing with females, but we're seeing it on the other side as well?
There'll be a big chunk of it, and again, it depends on what medications they've gone and taken and what they've exposed themselves to as well. But a big chunk of it will be cortisol driven because cortisol lowers testosterone, so we know that.
Yeah.
And so that's why often when people are super stressed, they'll lose their libido and things like that as well. And as soon as we're increasing cortisol and losing our testosterone, muscle mass is going to be impacted. You can eat a heap of protein and basically if you don't have good testosterone levels, you're going to struggle to be what you were, Nutrient levels in our soils are really bad. So zinc plays a large role in male fertility, and it's part of 300 different enzyme reactions in our body. So it's part of our immune, it's part of our gut function. So we need zinc to absorb, to produce hydrochloric acids to break down our proteins, and so then we can rebuild. So there's very, very particular nutrients that we can test for and make sure that you have the right amount. But zinc plays a large role in males, a huge role. And if you don't have enough zinc, you're likely to also change your testosterone to dialpha testosterone, which is why you get male pattern baldness happening as well. And so men out there with baldness need to have high zinc levels. They really need to. You'll start seeing they wake up in the middle of the night and they start urinating in the middle of the night. That's the prostate's enlarging because zinc keeps prostate shrunk.
Okay.
So it's a really important one for men. But also just the fact that, gut function, we're eating a whole heap of crap full of seeded oils that is toxic to our hormones. A lot of people aren't getting the nutrients that they need just even in the type of protein. So you would definitely want to be having grass-fed meats. If you're going to have meats, you really want to be watching the toxins that come in your system because things like heavy metals are going to challenge the nutrients. So if you've got mercury in your system or lead, which we're getting even when we use certain, spices and stuff. When we're eating certain nuts from other countries, they are putting things on those products that we're thinking we're eating something good and it's full of actual mercury and lead and cadmium. Smokers, they're already adding, like anything that you take that's a drug, already, say for instance you lived the cleanest life as you could in our environment, not knowing what had what in it, and you think that you're doing the right thing, you're already challenging the body in a major way. Just phthalates in perfumes and sprays that we spray, and you spray deodorants and stuff like full of phthalates. They're going to screw up your hormones. Caffeine. So I worked with a when I was.
Do you drink coffee?
I do not.
Wow.
I haven't drunk coffee since I was 20 years
Can you
old.
move on?
I have not.
You know what? I was with her yesterday, and she got a chai latte, so she didn't have it.
Yeah, I do not. I do not.
She's right too.
I don't drink alcohol either.
Just say,
Never
"Fuck,
have.
she's
Never
already
taken
got
a
head
drug
start."
in my
Yeah.
life. So, and even then, I still feel like I've got enough things in my life to
Happening,
challenge my
yeah.
system. Like,
Well,
you
you're
know,
a grandmother now too.
I'm a
Two.
grandmother too. Yeah,
Fuck, that's a handful, and they both have done around the same time.
I know.
They could have had a bit of a gap.
I know. That's why I'm like, I've got to be stronger. Yeah. I'm just going to make sure.
So, yeah, so if you're reducing caffeine, reducing sugar, but then there's a whole issue with like deodorants and all that kind of stuff that bring male fertility down. Then we're going to the heavy metals that also bring fertility down. So really, males are getting hit from so many angles.
They're getting hit from a lot of angles, let alone if they had been exposed to things in their mother's womb.
Okay. Like stress.
Yeah, or traumas. Even as a child. But I mean actually, like say, for instance, if their mother was drinking coffee. So what we know is when Irene Pollard is a professor I worked under, and she's written a few books. She gave 1 dose of caffeine to a mother rat. She did this experiment over and over throughout that pregnancy, just one, and she watched it. She attached it to a fluorescent marker, and she watched where did it end up in the offspring. And so it ended up, so it didn't go out of their system. As they're born, it was in the brains of all the offspring, and it was in the testes of the males.
Wow.
And what she found is generations and as it kept sort of going, the fertility was dropping and dropping and dropping. And what they've found now, there are papers out there showing that spike protein has also caused issues with fertility. But fertility was already a problem years and years ago. It was 1 in 6. I think it's 1 in 5 now are infertile in Australia.
Wow.
I've heard it's 1 in 4 in America, and I heard Jordan Peterson say it was 1 in 3 in Canada.
Wow.
So, but in saying all of that, I have had men go from 0 sperm to having sperm. If they're in a like they're older and they're trying to hurry through their fertility. Like now I've got a patient who is pregnant and her partner was exactly that particular type of person, and they could just go through the IVF process. They didn't have to go into his testes and try and take sperm out and then see if they could manage to make an embryo. They're having a very healthy little baby. And then other guys I've actually been able to change over. You know, obviously if I've got more time and I can build it up. Yeah. But, you know, even particular activities, flying a lot can cause issues. I've seen that.
That's tough.
Yeah.
I was just on the road to Germany and South Korea and just recalibrating isn't that simple.
One of the highest miscarriage rates are in air stewards.
Wow.
And also with sperm issues.
Jeez.
So going up in the high ionisation zones can also have some issues. And I've seen it where people have been tested before they've got on a plane, and then as they arrive, same person, it's like chalk and cheese. It's like a totally different person. But yeah, so there are lots and lots. So that's why normally what I do is I take a detailed history, and if I'm trying to make some, like a guy more fertile or to have higher testosterone, I'm going to be looking at all the pathways that are involved in that. So liver plays a large role, you know, being overweight might play a large role in that. And just their, you know, how are they sleeping well? Are they going to the gym? The doing muscle work is very important. Extremely important. What I normally say is, think about if we were in a jungle, because that's how we're built, what would you actually be doing? How would you live your life? Because people say to me, oh, what should I eat? And, you know, can I have that? To simplify it, obviously we can get very clever around it, but what would you be doing? There's a lot of studies around epigenetics with 8 movements, you know, the twisting, the lifting, the pushing, the pulling. And they know, like even just squatting down, in countries where people are doing that, there's longevity. And so they know there's certain movements that are connected to longevity. And so, but if you were in a jungle, you couldn't sit on a toilet. So that would be gone. You'd be climbing mountains, you'd be climbing trees, you'd be lifting all the time. Things wouldn't be easy. You'd be hanging around with community. You would be going by the sun and the birds and the moon and all of that and the stars. So hormone levels would be a lot better.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing to ourselves by turning on lights and screens and all that sort of stuff. We're actually putting a stress on our bodies. And so in doing that, how do we counteract that? So we can be very clever. We can sort of go, did I have a day that was really like yang today, where it was more aggression and I was really angry with people and I had to... Then you would look at the flip side of that yin.
Fuck, you reminded me of today. Not in a bad way. No, I had it a lot on. Like as I'm listening to you, I'm going, fuck, there's a few things I've got to fix up here right now. Of myself, because you got to have that self-awareness. Of course, to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But Elizabeth, mate, we're going to do this more often.
My pleasure. I will.
Honestly, I know a lot, but like just listening to you has changed. That's why I want to have you around more.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're going to utilize all of this to help our members. You guys are like family. Kurt works here, and Elle's been so good for a long time. Been very supportive, and I think this was. I think we were talking about it a while back. Remember, Elle said you got to meet my mum. You got to meet my mum.
Yeah.
Fuck, it took a few years.
I know.
Took too long, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I think the timing's right, because even building this studio wasn't that long ago. But what I want to say to the people that watch, our Elevate Experience podcast is that this is what I'm most passionate about, and everything you're saying actually leads into every person's life, from people that are at the highest level in sport to your average young person coming through to the gym, to your elderly member. It relates to every single person, and I think we can definitely help a lot of people with your expertise and your knowledge, and not only that, but your track record for so many years.
Yeah. So I suppose if people want to...
How do people, first of all, how do people reach you? Because I'm going to put your bio up and all that kind of stuff, Instagram, LinkedIn.
Yep.
How do people reach you?
So my website is lifeontheinside.com.au, and if they basically reach me through email, or they can give us a call or whatever. But we do have programs, and we obviously specialise in things like longevity and in fertility and just general well-being. So we're dealing with everything from autoimmune is one of our high ones, because
actually that's what I want to get into next time, autoimmune, because autoimmune's huge.
Yeah, it's huge. And so but just general health, and just take them right through where we go, let's lay everything out on the table. Who are you? And let's start fixing it.
We're gonna get more people seeing you guys, because it's absolutely necessary, and our health is really our wealth. If we don't have that in order,
we got one life, right?
That's right. Thanks a lot. You're a champion.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks.